Hi, everyone. It's Tuesday again, and glad to be with you this week. We've passed another week. And as you recall, last week we talked about the Beatitudes. The gospel continues with the Sermon on the Mount. And this week, the topic is being salt of the earth and light of the world, which Jesus is telling us we already are, just by being his disciples. What are you going to do with it? How are we going to do that? How are we going to make sure that happens? And how do we, for those of us, the adults in the room, how do we teach the younger people how to do that? I think it might be easier than we think, but let's see. So yesterday's lesson, I was with the twins and we did an opening prayer, which we always do. It's very spontaneous, and like as I said before, they're leading, and they were prepared for the lesson. I have them reading the gospel, beforehand, and just so they're familiar with it. And I asked them to summarize it even before they read it in the weekly. So this way, I want it to really have sunk in already, and it really works well. It seems to work well. They're familiar with it, and now we can get into other things. Actually, yesterday, after the opening prayer, they got into all of a sudden these topics of everything grandma did, and then we had to pull them away. I had to rein them in because we could have gone all over and what was wrong and what was right with the world. I mean, it was really, I wish I had the time to really get into it with them, but we tried to do that during dinner time and things like that. So, but I wanted to stick with the lesson because it's important that we do that. So after our opening prayer, again, I reviewed some of the things about the Beatitudes because, as I said last week, Beatitudes is tough to teach. It's tough and not so that it's tough to teach, but the language and what does it mean and the meanings of everything. Where this week when we came to salt and light, I was like, oh yes, this is great. This can't be too difficult. So we did the lesson, but what was great about it, you have those Holy Spirit moments. And for me, that really happened. I experienced it this weekend, and it all tied in with the lesson for this week. And it was really fun. It was a fun thing to do, but it was a real thing to do. It was authentic, and they got it. So what I did this week in my parish, we are connected to a hospital not too far from here. And this hospital built a hospital in the northern part of Haiti. And so they have connected with Food for Hunger or Feed the Hunger. I think that's the organization. I don't want to get it incorrect. And they come and they're asking us to pack meals to bring to Haiti. And I said, well, how do you bring it to Haiti? And they said, well, people who were there, they were taking it down to the Carolinas. And at the Carolinas, they put this food on barges and they ship it to Haiti. So that was fine. But to see the videos and to understand what these people are going through is just mind-boggling. I just can't believe the hunger and the disruption, and the victims, they're all victims. But it felt good to be able to work with them and to put these meals together. So what they do, they have freeze-dried food, put them into bags, seal them up, and then when they get to Haiti, they mix it with water, and each little bag can feed 6 people or 6 bowls. Of course, they're bringing water too, because the water situation down there is not a good one. People are suffering and dying from cholera and all kinds of things. But that was what happened this week on Friday night. We had 250 parishioners show up Friday night to do this. And then on Saturday, there were another 250 people. So altogether, about 60,000 meals were sent to Haiti just because we did a packathon. That's what they called it. So it was wonderful. And here's just a little picture of it, if you can see it. So brought this with me yesterday to tell the children about it because I think it's important. And of course, they gave you T-shirts and they gave you little, bracelets and things like that. But this is my point. And there were a lot of children there. It was a very intergenerational event, and I was thrilled. And the reason I bring it up is because this is now I'm shifting to another. It's connected, but it's a different topic. It's about service, and especially in light of being salt and light to the world. I think as a church, we have to do better in a way of telling young people, especially confirmands, although I believe this should start way earlier than when confirmation comes around. I think people want to serve others. That came out. That's one of the topics and themes that came out through the synod, in the discussion groups, that young families really want to serve and teach their children how to serve others who are needy. But one of the things I think sometimes we as a church can do an injustice, especially we wait for confirmation, and that's great, but they have to have service hours and so many, and I don't know where they got that number from, but they do. And I've struggled with this for quite a while. And I even hear I have a granddaughter who's going to be making her confirmation this year, and she's got to get her service hours in. I said, "What are you doing to do that?" And she said, I'm like, I take care of the clock at basketball games. I helped out at a school, children, they were doing some kind of a fun event evening for families. And I don't know, I'm not sure exactly what she did for it, but she did it. I think she worked the food booth, maybe, which is fine. That's all great. I think that's, they're getting into their communities, they're being of service. But service is different from what I think the church should be asking of these young people in terms of how do you help others. When you pull up in a parking lot, you pull up into a parking space, sometimes there's a sign and it says, "Please do not park here." It may not even say, "Please don't park here." If you do, you may have to do 200 hours of community service. That to me is kind of a negative look at service. But I think as Christians, as disciples, we have to look at something different. I believe we as church, when we are preparing people for sacrament, or just being in the role of teaching about discipleship, we need to be thinking about ministry. Ministry certainly is serving, but it has another spin on it. And it has the spin of Christ. And it has the spin of, yeah, I'm sure Jesus is fine with people keeping, score at a basketball game. But what about the people who are hungry, like in Haiti? And this really came to me this weekend when all of this was happening. And when I spoke with my grandchildren about it, to be aware of what's going on in the world, to be aware that people are suffering, to be aware that this is what it means to be salt and light. How do you bring hope to these people of Haiti? How do I bring hope to people in school? It's not just what can I do to be of service? What can I do to be salt and light to others? So we discussed it. We discussed the gospel a lot, and they were very taken with this whole idea of this packathon that we did. Something happened to them when listening to the story, looking at the pictures of the children who are really hungry. And what does that mean? Uh, and they realized they have to be sensitive to that. I think part of our role as grandparents, as parents, as religious educators, catechists, we have to let them know this is happening. You can't protect them with this, but also what can they do to help? Know that people are suffering. How do we do this? How do we turn this service into ministry by bringing Jesus to others? There's the difference. And I think we need as a church to really empower them with that. Uh, I don't want to just sign off on your hours. What did you do? And I felt this way when I was the DRE as well. I felt very strongly that you need to do things that others in terms of ministry, that is really important. That's what we as church can do for them. Many of them have programs in their schools where they're doing things. I think we need to be who we are and say, listen, how are you a disciple to others? So just to sensitize them and to let them see that this is happening in the world today, that it can be some of the parts of the world are devastated. How can we bring light? How do we do that in our family? And I asked them that, and they were like, I can help make the bed. I could do that. Yeah, that's true. But is there any other thing you can do? And I think the challenge that I was going after is let's take this to another little level, a little deeper. Uh, I can do this, I can do that. Yes, you can. And I'm sure you're doing it already. But how do you put the discipleship spin on that? And I think that's a challenge to us to present to them. So I think they got it. And we'll see, and I think, again, I will be taking them on some kind of field trips. We'll be doing that just to see, what it's like. to feed the hungry, not just, give money, but to actually do something physically so you know that you've been a part of this. It makes you feel good, believe me. So what I wanted to do yesterday at the end of the lesson, because we're talking about salt and light, to me, at least for me, when I read about this gospel, it's also like, it's not like Jesus actually calling and saying, oh, come follow me. We heard that, a couple of gospels away. He's saying, this is who you are. You are salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. And for me, that's almost, launching you into some kind of ministry, into some kind of mission that, and sharing in Jesus's mission of doing what Jesus was doing for the reign of God. So what I decided to do, whenever that happens, I believe whenever you have a commissioning service, although this was not a commissioning service, but it was a little baby one, I decided to bless them at the end. And I just made the sign of the cross on their foreheads. And then I read this to them. And what I would like to do is end this with you today, asking God's blessing on all of us. And if you remember, if you want to just make the sign of the cross after, or whatever you'd like to do. But I would like to share this blessing with you. And then I will see you next week. You are the salt of the earth. Sprinkle us across our town, God, across our world, to bring the flavor of your kingdom wherever we go. You are the light of the world. Uncover the radiance that is within us, God, to shine the truth of your love wherever we go. Let your light shine before others, that everyone we meet may see our lives of worship and glorify you, our Father in heaven. Amen. See you next week.